The moment his fingers wrapped around my wrist, something inside me dropped. It wasn't the kind of fear you feel in movies. It was heavier, quieter, like my body understood something before my mind could. Back in 4th grade, our class went on a trip to a small countryside animal park about an hour away from school. It wasn't anything special, no lions or big attractions, just small animals, birds, goats, and deer in fenced areas. The sky was dull and gray that day, and light rain kept tapping softly against the bus windows, making everything feel slow and strange. There was one building I remember more than anything else. It didn't feel like the rest of the place. Inside, everything was still, too still. The lights were dim, the air smelled odd, and the floors were covered in deep red carpet that made the whole place feel darker than it should have been. Glass cases lined the walls, each one holding stuffed animals, real ones preserved forever in frozen silence. At that age, I wasn't like the other kids. I didn't talk much, and I often wandered off alone. Even the teachers had noticed it, my mom had too, but that day, no one stopped me when I slipped away from the group. While everyone moved through the exhibits together, I quietly went into a restroom without telling anyone, just trying to escape the noise for a while, but when I stepped back out, the hallway was empty. No voices, no footsteps, nothing. For a moment, I just stood there, expecting someone to appear, but no one did. Instead of going back the way I came, I made a choice I still regret and walked down a different hallway. The lights above flickered faintly as I moved forward. The red carpet stretched endlessly ahead, swallowing the sound of my steps. Glass cases lined both sides, and for some reason, it felt like the animals inside were watching me, even though I knew they couldn't be. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. Then I saw him. At the end of the hallway, partially hidden behind stacked chairs, a man was standing there. At first, I thought it was nothing. Maybe a worker. I even gave a small, nervous laugh, but he didn't respond. He just stepped out slowly, like he had been waiting for me. "Hey," he said, his voice low and calm. "Where'd your group go?" I hesitated and said, "I don't know." There was a pause, and then he walked straight toward me. Before I could think or step back, he grabbed my hand and said, "Come on, I'll help you find them." His grip was tight, and something about it immediately felt wrong, even though I didn't understand why yet. I didn't realize I was in danger until the door shut behind us. At first, I still believed he was helping me. He sounded calm, almost normal, so when he led me down a narrow corridor and pushed open a metal exit door, I followed him without question. Cold air hit my face as we stepped outside. Behind the building, everything changed. It was quiet, hidden. Old benches sat near 2 large dumpsters, and beyond them were thick, dark woods that didn't belong anywhere near a children's park. That's when his grip changed. It wasn't guiding anymore. It was pulling me hard. "Come on," he muttered, walking faster. I stumbled behind him, my shoes scraping the ground as he dragged me forward. I couldn't scream. I couldn't react. My body felt frozen, like it had forgotten how to respond. But inside, everything dropped at once. That sick feeling of fear took over completely. The closer we got to the woods, the quieter everything became. No voices, no children, no teachers, just wind through the trees and my shaky breathing. Then suddenly, a voice cut through the silence. "Hey!" It was loud, sharp, and panicked. I turned and saw a teacher running toward us, shouting at the top of her lungs. Everything changed instantly. His grip disappeared. He let go of me like I had burned him. Without a word, he turned and ran straight into the woods, vanishing between the trees in seconds. I stood there frozen, my arms still aching. Moments later, teachers rushed out, grabbed me, and pulled me back inside. Their voices were loud and overlapping, scared, angry, confused. I couldn't even answer them. Soon after, the trip was shut down completely. The park owners called the police, and we were rushed back onto the buses. Everything felt like it had collapsed in minutes. I sat quietly by the window as the bus started moving. The other kids kept looking at me, whispering, confused. I didn't respond. I just stared outside, and then I saw him again, near the edge of the road, half hidden behind branches, crouching in the shadows, watching us leave. Our eyes didn't meet, but I knew it was him, and I didn't say anything. Maybe I was too shocked back then. Maybe I didn't fully understand what had happened, or maybe I just didn't know how to explain it. But I understand it now. And even today, I still think about that moment and wonder what would have happened if that teacher hadn't screamed. The worst part wasn't the scream. It was the silence that came right after. For a few seconds, I just froze in my bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand what had just happened. Then I slowly turned my head toward the glass door and saw Ryan sitting upright, completely still, his eyes locked on something outside. "Did you see that?" he whispered. I hadn't, but the way he said it made my chest tighten. Back when I was in high school, I studied in a well-known district in New Jersey, the kind of place where students were always going on trips. The nice kind too. I was part of the school choir, and every year we would get at least one big school trip. During 10th grade, we went to a quiet lakeside resort tucked away in the mountains of Pennsylvania. It wasn't peak season at all. It was late November, freezing cold, and the entire place felt strangely empty. The bus ride took around 3 hours. I was sitting with Ryan, my closest friend at the time, and we had already planned to share a room. When we reached the resort, the first thing I noticed was the stillness. No crowds, no noise, just cold air and a silent lake in the distance. We were staying for 3 days with a few teachers accompanying us, but they weren't strict. As long as we informed them where we were going, we were free to move around. The first day actually felt normal, even fun. Ryan, me, and our friends, Hannah and Zoe, spent the afternoon racing go-karts, trying rock climbing, and later jumping into the heated indoor pool. We laughed, took pictures, ate dinner together, and everything felt perfect. Nothing seemed wrong yet. Our room was on the ground floor with a large, sliding glass door facing the lake below, surrounded by dark trees. That night, the moonlight reflected on the water in a way that looked almost unreal. Like the lake itself was glowing. We didn't even bother closing the blinds because it looked too peaceful. Around 10 p.m., we returned to the room after walking around the resort. We changed, got into bed, and started talking like usual. Random jokes, plans for the next day, normal stuff. About an hour passed before everything changed. Suddenly, Ryan screamed. Not loud, but sharp, like something had startled him completely. I sat up instantly and asked, "What?" But he didn't answer right away. He just pointed toward the glass door, his hand slightly shaking. I swear, someone was standing there. My heart dropped immediately. I forced myself to look, but there was nothing outside, just the lake, the trees, and the moonlight reflecting off the water. "You're messing with me," I said, trying to stay calm. "I'm not," he replied quickly. It was right there, right outside the door. We went quiet after that. The kind of silence where every small sound suddenly feels louder, the faint hum of the heater, the creaking of the building, the wind moving through trees outside. "I'm closing the blinds," I said, getting up. I walked toward the door, trying not to overthink it, but as I reached for the curtain, I hesitated and looked outside one more time. That's when I felt it, that strange feeling of being watched. There was still nothing visible, but the lake no longer felt peaceful. It felt heavy, like it was hiding something. I quickly pulled the blinds shut. We didn't talk much after that. Eventually we tried to sleep, but sleep didn't come easily, because sometime later that night, we both heard it, a soft, slow tap coming from the glass door. I didn't understand the scream until I saw her. For a split second, my mind refused to accept what I was seeing. My body went completely heavy, like I couldn't move even if I wanted to. But she was there, right outside the glass door, a tall, painfully thin old woman with gray, tangled hair covering most of her face. Both her hands were pressed flat against the glass as she leaned forward, as if trying to look inside the room rather than just through it. I couldn't breathe. Beside me, Noah whispered shakily, "You see her, right?" Before I could respond, she slowly stepped back and then disappeared. Neither of us moved for a moment. Then Ryan looked at me, pale and waiting for me to react first. I got out of bed and he followed immediately. We rushed to the door, slid it open, and stepped outside into the freezing air. The entire pathway was empty, no footprints, no movement, no shadows. The grass was still, and the slope toward the lake looked untouched. There was nowhere she could have gone that fast. And deep down, we both knew what we saw wasn't normal. The next morning, we didn't tell the teachers. I don't know why. Maybe we were afraid they wouldn't believe us, or maybe we didn't want the trip to end early. But we told our friends, Hannah and Zoe. They laughed at first, then stopped when they saw our faces. The rest of the day went on like nothing happened, but I kept noticing Ryan staring into space, like he was replaying it in his head. I'd probably look the same. That night, we came back from the back entrance and immediately shut the blinds without a word. Ryan fell asleep quickly, like he was forcing it. I stayed up on my phone, trying not to think about that face against the glass until I eventually drifted off. I don't know how much time passed, but I woke up suddenly. No sound, no movement, just silence, the kind that feels wrong. My heart was already racing for no reason. "Ryan?" I whispered, but there was no answer. I turned slightly and looked toward his bed, but I couldn't see him clearly. Something was blocking my view, a tall shape standing between our beds. My chest tightened as I slowly looked up, and there she was again, right beside me, the same woman. Standing so close, I could hear her breathing. Her hollow eyes were locked directly onto mine, and I couldn't move. All I could do was stare as her lips slowly stretched into a smile that didn't look human at all. Her voice came out calm, almost casual. She took 2 slow steps back and said, "Your back door was open." Then she turned and walked out of the room like she belonged there. I finally managed to breathe again. My whole body was shaking. "Ethan," I whispered, but he didn't wake up. I shook him harder. "Ethan, wake up." He shot up confused. "What happened?" I told him everything in panic. We both looked at the sliding door. It was unlocked. Neither of us remembered leaving it that way. We locked it immediately, checked it twice, and pulled the blinds completely shut. "Don't sleep," he said. "I'm not," I replied. We sat there in silence, staring at the door, flinching at every small sound. Hours passed painfully slow until 4 a.m. "Just a few more hours?" Ethan said quietly. When morning finally came, we went to breakfast with Hannah and Zoe, but barely spoke. Afterward, as we walked back, Ethan suddenly grabbed my arm and whispered, "Don't look. Just keep walking." Of course, I looked through the glass of the room next to ours. She was sitting on a bed, back straight, hands folded neatly, staring directly at us without blinking. My stomach dropped. "She's watching us," I whispered. We ran straight to the front desk and told the staff. At first they were confused, but after hearing us, 2 staff members came with us. When we returned to the room and opened the door, she was still there in the same position. But this time, she wasn't alone. An older man was sitting on the other bed, staring blankly at us. The staff tried to talk to them, but it was strange. Later we were told they had mental health issues, but that explanation never felt right. We thought they would be removed, but they weren't. That's when we finally told our teachers everything. What followed was chaos, arguments, discussions, confusion, but one thing became clear: we were leaving. The trip ended early, buses were arranged, and by afternoon we were heading home. No one said much during the ride. As for me and Ethan, we didn't care about the trip ending early. We were just glad we got out of that place.